Alright, Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to be continuing with the topic of waves. Okay? It is topic number 13 in your syllabus. You can previous lessons में cover करते आए हैं. If you open your syllabus, so you would find there are three main portions in this particular topic. The first is called describing wave motion, जिसके अंदर we defined the wave, oscillation क्या होती है, vibration क्या होती है, we defined everything. We said that a wave is a disturbance in which the particles or the fields, in case of an electromagnetic wave, oscillate to and fro rhythmically, repeatedly, periodically, in a given direction to transfer energy without moving any particle, without relocating any particle. Okay? It's not moving के up and down नहीं हो रहा है या oscillation नहीं हो रही. It's more like it's not relocating any of the particles. Okay? So we had all of those discussions. Then we moved on to some wave terms. यानी कि कुछ अपने types of waves भी हमने discuss की थी. Then we moved on to the wave terms. For example, amplitude, wavelength, frequency, time period, very good, phase, and so on. Some key terms associated with waves. Today we're going to move on to the third and the very last part, which is wave behavior. तो अगर हम behavior की बात करें, person के behavior, so can you describe what do you understand by the word behavior? किसी की behavior
how someone behaves, like nice or rude, something.
Okay, nice or rude. Okay, I like the word react. किसी और की कोई idea?
Something that reflects the person.
So something that reflects the way the person. Okay, चलिए. Out of all of these, I like the word react a little more. क्योंकि जो आप बाकी सारी बातें कर रहे हैं कि वो rude है या जो भी है, that's a form of reaction, right? तो in your presence perhaps आपने उसको कुछ नहीं भी किया and still they are rude, that's still a reaction. Perhaps it's a reaction to your presence. जब हम wave की behavior, when we start talking about wave behaviors, then we're talking about how waves react to certain things. Simple as that, ठीक है? How waves behave. What can a wave do? And in fact, there are three things that a wave can do. Just to say, two things are part of your syllabus. The third part is not part of your syllabus. लेकिन आपको general information जरूर देता चल रहा होगा. The first thing that a wave can do when it encounters a boundary, a surface of sorts, is it can bounce. Right? So it can bounce away, reflect. That's so reflect भी है, that's also fine. So bounce off
90
a surface, ठीक है? So that's the very first thing it can do. So when it encounters a boundary, it reacts by simply bouncing off. It's possible. The second thing that a wave can do is very good. You got that? Refract, which is bend, meaning change its direction of travel. Due to why do we have refractions?
change in medium.
Change in medium. More importantly, मैंने जब उसको explain किया, optical density was only for light. Change in medium, okay, that's important. But what does the change in medium lead to? Speed. Very good. So the reason why a wave refracts or changes its direction of travel, bends, is due to a change in speed. So a change in speed. Okay? So when the speed,
medium पहले change होता है और speed बाद में change होता है.
so yes, speed changes due to a change in medium. In case of light, जिसको आप कहते हैं change in optical density, it was a very good word, well done to you. But it's the change in speed is not only achieved due to a change in medium necessarily. Okay? There are different sorts of waves. For example, water wave में this change in speed doesn't occur due to a change in medium. Okay? It depends on something else. It depends on depth of the water. ठीक है? या sound में it's not the optical density which helps us change the speed, it's more like the temperature that affects the speed at which the sound is propagating through the medium. Okay? So different waves have different ways of changing speed. They have different factors that affect its speed. So it's not just a change in medium, that was one scenario, one case with light. Okay? It can be due to other things as well. Change in, like an important change, it needs to be associated with the change in speed. That's the important thing. Okay? The third thing, this is not part of your syllabus. A wave can diffract. ठीक है? ये आपके syllabus में नहीं है, लेकिन in general मैं आपको बता देता हूँ. It helps you understand what's going on. It's the spreading of a wave about an edge or a corner. Okay? So this is basically the reason why you can hear somebody talking around a corner as well. So for example, if I hide behind the table, maybe something like this, you can still hear me. Okay? The reason for that was not because the sound is traveling straight to you, but perhaps the sound is spreading about the edge of the stage.
It is echoing?
Okay? Right now it's also echoing, yes. That's a reflection of sound. Very good example. So, the sound was spreading around an edge or a corner. This is known as diffraction. It's not necessarily reflecting from one part to another. Okay, for example, if you're standing in the field next to the building and somebody is talking around the corner, where is it echoing from? It's not echoing from the sky. So it's still spreading around the corner. That's known as diffraction. It's not part of your syllabus.
So how can we hear sound through doors or through walls?
Okay, sound can propagate through solids, liquids and gases. In fact, sound propagates fastest through solids, followed by liquids, and then it's slowest in gases.
So what about the soundproof doors or soundproof glasses?
Okay, so those, they're made of some types of material, soft material that sort of absorbs sound.
Like carpet.
Okay? Like carpets and curtains and so on. We'll study that when we study the chapter on sound. Iske baad hum sound okay. So these things, these wave behaviors are not specific to any specific type of wave, any specific wave. This is just general behavior for all waves. So, for example, it can happen with light, it can happen with sound, it can happen with water, it can happen with rope, it can happen, and so on. Okay? So these are general wave behaviors. I think it's fairly well understood. Okay, thought about defining it, the bouncing of a wave when it strikes a surface. Refraction is the bending of a wave due to a change in speed as the wave approaches that change in speed at an angle. The change in angle is also important. The approach to it with an angle is also important, sorry. And diffraction, वैसे मैंने आपको describe कर दिया, although it's not part of your syllabus. ठीक है? Alright, next we're going to talk about something known as the wave front. So I want all of you to stand up, please. Somehow I want you to stand next to each other, maybe perhaps holding hands. Okay?
Yes.
So on either side, so I want you to stand in a line all together holding hands. Stand still. And you're going to walk, इस तरह से, so that you're all facing me.
Okay.
You're going to walk towards me. So the stool basic रास्ते से हटा दें. Kindly get rid of the stools so nobody trips over. चलें. Hold hands. I want you to hold hands. इतना बेशक खुल के ना करें. नहीं. अच्छा. Now listen to the instructions carefully. ठीक है? I want, look at each other, I want all of you to stand in a single straight line. Perhaps you could use the tiles to match where you're standing. Very good. Well done. Fantastic. Now what I want, listen to the requirements now. When we walk, we walk in steps, right? So first you might lift your right leg. Don't do that right now. You'll do it in a moment. You might lift your right leg, then you might place it on the ground, then you would lift your second leg and you would place it on the ground, and so on. It's a repeated oscillatory movement. It's a repeated to and fro movement. Okay? It's not about a fixed position, so it's not an oscillation. इसकी correction कर लेते हैं. लेकिन at least it's a repeated movement. ठीक है? Now what I want is somehow all of you should work together so that all of your right legs would go up together. You would step them on the ground together. Then you would lift your left leg together. You would place it on the ground together. And I want you all to walk in the same step. Kind of like soldiers in the army when they march.
1, 2, 3. Right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Fantastic. Alright, you can sit down now. So you can sit down now. What you just did, what you just experienced was all of you particles were moving in the same step of the walking cycle. Okay, that's what you experienced. You were all walking in the same step together. Although all of you particles were moving separately. So similarly, when we have, for instance, I'll describe it perhaps. So, for instance, you've got here you've got a wave that's traveling through. Here's a water wave. Here's a water wave. Well, this isn't the only wave that's oscillating all of the particles in its path. There might be a second wave that's also oscillating all of the water particles, just like you were standing next to the other person, right? So you are one particle that's moving in a cycle. There was another particle next to you, the other person, that was also moving in a cycle. There was a third person that was also moving in a cycle. So similarly, here's a particle that's moving in a cycle, up and down, up and down, up and down. Okay? Actually, this particle stays as it is. Lekin the energy transfers. Okay? Actually, but there's another particle just next to it, on its right hand side perhaps. That was also transferring energy. सारे इकट्ठे up and down, up and down, up and down. तो एक particle ये rope, for example मैं rope के example अगर उठाता हूँ, तो एक बंदा है इधर rope को up and down कर रहा है. The wave is going through across from left to right, है ना? So there is a second person that's also simultaneously, just with me, in the same step, in the same part of the cycle. They're also moving the rope up and down. And there's a third person on my left. He's also moving the rope up and down. And so you see, there's a series of ups and downs. There are 3 waves that are traveling in such a fashion that they're all traveling together in the same step, in the same cycle.
But separately.
But separately, these are 3 different waves.
But these are 3 different.
But they're all in the same part of the cycle. Does it make sense?
Yes.
So, in other words, they're all in the same phase. You just step covered me, it's basically called phase. Okay? Same part of the wave cycle. So, all the particles in phase, say for example, the crests together, all of the particles that come up together, they form something known as a wavefront. Okay? So when you see, for example, you're standing at the ocean and you're admiring the shoreline, and you see all of those waves coming towards you, and आप कहते हैं कि oh, wave is coming, run away, पीछे की तरफ आप जाए, and then you will come to the shore again as the tide retreats. आप इस किस्म की कुछ games करते होंगे, हो सकते हैं perhaps. So when you see that and you call it a wave, it's actually a series, a number of waves traveling together in the same phase, in the same step, all together. They're going up together, they're going down together, they're going up together, they're going down together. And the things that you actually see, all of the particles that are going up simultaneously together, that's actually the wave front, not the wave. ठीक है? A wave would be an individual particle going up and down. All of them together going up and down, which is what you see, that is a wavefront. जी पूछे.
But all of these together are so powerful that they can move a person.
Yes.
Okay. नहीं पूछ रहे हैं, आप बता रहे हैं.
पूछ रही हूँ.
Yes, they can.
सबकी
No,
तो
it depends.
तो सबकी पावर इक्वल होती है.
It depends. Look, the person is like the particle. ये ball की तरह. The person would only move up and down. The person would oscillate. He will not relocate from one part to the other because remember, a wave doesn't relocate.
Sir, relocate ही होते हो आप wave की. No, sir.
Wait. That is if there is also a current in the water. A water current. That's a different thing. It's a flow rate.
Is current different from wave?
Yes. A current is a flow of something.
Sir, फिर तो
It's a
हर
flow
वक्त
rate.
current ही होगा अंदर क्योंकि whenever.
So ocean में तो आपके पास underwater currents भी you have a number of factors.
Sir, but lake में waves होती हैं ना? Because
Yes.
it's a.
अगर still water हो,
Still.
like in a lake, and there are some waves and no current. Say for example, somebody is just dipping
That
something
will not
into the
move
lake,
us,
the wave.
relocate.
Then you will just bob up and down. Say for example, you are in a raft, the raft will just go up and down. कभी आप देखें, अगर इस तरह से होता, वीडियोस जाके देखें, शिप जब खड़ा होता है डॉक यार्ड पे and it's bobbing up and down, why doesn't it keep crashing into the shoreline?
Why does a person crashes and relocate?
कम होता है, लेकिन it's only due to currents as other ships and other boats are going.
टाइम गए थे ना, so we were swimming, तो जब ये बोट जाती थी तो waves का करंट आता था.
हाँ, that's a current. ठीक है,
So,
that's
but
it.
when I was standing at the shore, you can call it, तो जब wave आती थी, simultaneously तो बार-बार वो उड़ा के आपको इतना दूर ले जाती थी, so that's not real.
Tide, वो tide जो है ना वो currents के ऊपर काम कर रही है.
Okay.
The up and down
So you
motion,
cannot call
that
that
is
wave.
हाँ, वो wave वो current. ठीक है. So there are different types of wave fronts. Yes.
Sir, when we throw pebbles into water,
Yes.
for example, a lake or an ocean, why does it bounce off around 2 to 3 times and then it goes, then it sinks?
Yeah, वो ऐसे करके खेलते हैं ना.
Sir, जब pebbles फेंकते हैं,
Like this.
तो फिर वो यूं करता है, मतलब
Bounce
bounce
to the
होता है.
Pebbles.
Yes, when people
Oh,
have
yes.
pebbles, why do they bounce?
वो तो that's बाद में सब कुछ है. वो surface tension के साथ उसका काम होता है.
Okay.
ठीक है, it's not part of this. I'm trying to point out. ठीक है. It's got something to do with surface tension. Put it on the way back to your class.
So a person can produce a wave inside a water. मतलब अगर आप for example phone फेंकते हो तब भी तो wave बनती है ना एक.
Wave नहीं.
हाँ, disturbance आप create कर सकते हैं. All right. Now look over here. I've got some still water. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
ठीक है. Now there are two ways in which we can produce these wave fronts of particles that are oscillating in the same cycle, right? So all crests together and so on. अगर तुम एक flat surface use करते हो, if I use a flat surface like this, so I would create something known as plane waves, linear. अगर उसको देखें, ठीक है? तो I won't do that. It's a circular jar, I think कि मैं दूसरी वाली करके दिखाऊंगा, ठीक है? But अगर मैं इसके अंदर एक ड्रॉप डाल दूं, कभी आप नोटिस करें स्टिल वाटर के अंदर यू ड्रॉप समथिंग, तो नाउ यू नो लॉन्गर हैव स्ट्रेट वेव्स ट्रैवलिंग, स्ट्रेट वेव फ्रंट्स ट्रैवलिंग. नाउ यू डोंट हैव दैट. व्हाट डू यू हैव? You have something that might look something close to this. So here is where the drop fell into the water, and then you've got a series of concentric circles.
Yes, like this.
And you see all the crests together as if they're spreading out from the center of disturbance. So this is produced whenever you have a point that is causing that disturbance. This is produced, the plane waves are produced wherever you have a flat surface producing the disturbance, okay, causing the disturbance. So the above type of wavefront is known as plane wavefront. The bottom one is known as circular wavefronts.
So what is the definition of wavefront? What can be the proper definition?
So a wavefront is a series of crests. Yeah, it's an imaginary line that joins all the crests of the waves that are traveling together.
Series of?
फिर से a wavefront is an imaginary line that joins all of the crests of the waves that are traveling together. अच्छा, unfortunately हमने बहुत ज़्यादा आगे तक discussion नहीं किया. I'm not going to move on to the next topic. We've only described different wave behaviors. We've defined what a wavefront is. We've had a look at some examples of those. But we have not moved on to the scientific or experimental methods of studying waves in a lab. ठीक है? So we haven't seen what a ripple tank is and how it demonstrates the three different wave behaviors. We haven't had a look at the relationships between frequency, wavelength and velocity. So that inshallah will come in the next session. ठीक है? चलिए तो बात करते हैं.